Hi everyone, welcome to my class. Today we'll be dealing with the next topic in vital signs, that is respiration. So respiration is one of the major vital signs of the body, and it is mainly important to sustain the life. So if you are the first time watching my video, please like, share, subscribe, and also click the notification button for further update of my videos. So now coming to the definition. So it is an act of breathing in which oxygen is inhaled through the nose and carbon dioxide is exhaled out. So or it is a process of taking in oxygen and leaving out carbon dioxide is called as respiration. And coming to the types of respiration, there are mainly three types. One is external respiration, internal respiration, and cellular respiration. So external respiration is diffusion of oxygen in the blood while carbon dioxide diffuses into the alveoli. That is, when we take in oxygen, there is higher concentration of oxygen in the alveoli, and the pulmonary capillaries, which is coming from the right ventricle of the heart, has deoxygenated blood, which means there is lower concentration of oxygen in the pulmonary capillaries. So diffusion occurs. Diffusion means there is exchange of molecules from higher molecular area, that is higher concentrated area, to the lower concentrated area. So the oxygen in the alveoli will diffuse into the pulmonary capillaries, and the high carbon dioxide in the pulmonary capillaries will diffuse into the alveoli. So this process where there is exchange of gases taking place in between the alveoli and the pulmonary capillaries is called as external respiration. And next is the internal respiration. So this occurs between the lungs and the cells. So that is, once the blood is oxygenated in the lungs, it is then carried through the pulmonary vein to the heart, and from the heart it goes into the systemic circulation to all parts of the body. So the blood that is oxygenated will have high concentration of oxygen, and the cells, that is the tissues consist of cells. So these cells will have decreased oxygen after their metabolic function. Okay, that is, once the cells use the oxygen and they release energy, they have high carbon dioxide, whereas the circulation blood will have the more of oxygen. So when there is more oxygen in the blood and more carbon dioxide in the cells, there is a diffusion occurs. That is, the carbon dioxide from the cell is transported to the blood, and then the oxygen in the blood is transported to the cells. That is called as internal respiration. Okay, so that is, the blood that is oxygenated will take the will transport the oxygen to the tissues, and the cell that is having more of carbon dioxide will transport the carbon dioxide to the blood. Later, through the veins, they will come to the heart and lungs for oxygenation. That is called as internal respiration. And next is the cellular respiration. So here, this is the metabolic reaction that occurs within the cells. Okay, so there are so many processes, and there are so many cycles like Krebs cycle and glycolysis cycle you would have read. So in all these cycles, there is some chemical reaction takes place where the oxygen and nutrients are converted into adenosine triphosphate. That is nothing but they are the storage form of energy, and the waste products are released outside. Okay, and the waste products also contain carbon dioxide. And this reaction involved in the respiration, where the catabolic reaction, that is breaking down of complex substances into smaller ones in order to release energy, is called as cellular respiration, that takes place within the cells. And coming to the physiology of respiration, so there are mainly 5 steps. One is inhalation, exhalation, gas exchange, oxygen transport, and carbon dioxide transfer. So these 5 steps will be explained in detail. So first is inhalation, in which the thoracic cavity, so once the after the exhalation, that is after the carbon dioxide is released outside from the lungs, the lung will have a that is, there is a negative pressure. Negative pressure is, the lung pressure is lower than the atmospheric pressure. Okay, so the lung, that is the airways, will be remaining open because of this negative pressure. So when there is inhalation, the lung volume expands. Okay, so that is when the oxygen is entering inside the diaphragm, that is the diaphragmatic muscles and the intercostal muscles, they will expand and they will also expand. So because of their expansion, the lung volume also expands. So according to the Boyle's law, when there is increase in the lung volume, there is decreased in the pressure. Okay, that means, so only when the size is increased, the pressure will be low because there is no congestion within the lungs. Okay, so the pressure is decreased, so this pressure will be decreased less, that is less than the atmospheric pressure. Okay, so because of this, there is a pressure gradient is created, which will pull the atmospheric air into the lungs. Okay, so that is the oxygen which is present in the atmosphere will be pulled inside into the lungs, which will result in inhalation. So once the oxygen enters, the alveoli will expand, that is the volume in the alveoli will be increased because of the presence of oxygen. This is called as inhalation. And next step is the exhalation. Okay, so once the lung, so in inhalation the lung volume will expand, and and this will causes the increased pressure in the lung cavity. Okay, so that is the more of oxygen is entering inside. So when more of oxygen enter inside, there is a pressure created inside the lungs. So this increased pressure will be more, that is the pressure will be more than the atmosphere, that is environmental pressure, so which will cause elastic recoil of the lungs. Okay, so that is the lungs will go back to their normal stage, that is called elastic recoil. So at that time, due to the pressure gradient, the air, that is the carbon dioxide, or the air after the respiration occurs, the carbon dioxide will come outside the out of the capillaries and they will accumulate in the alveoli. So this air will get forced outside from the thoracic cavity because of the change in the pressure gradient, that is called as exhalation. Okay, so once the exhalation occurs, the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles will relax and they will return to their normal position. Okay. Next step is the gas exchange. So this occurs through ventilation, perfusion and diffusion. So ventilation is the process, so that is in the each lungs there are millions of alveoli, and these alveoli are made up of gas. They are filled with gases, either oxygen or carbon dioxide, and they are also made up of rich capillary network, that is the pulmonary capillaries. They will come and surround this alveoli for oxygenation, and they are also supported by interstitial matrix. Okay, that is in between the tissues there are some space, alveolar spaces, which helps in transfer of, that is diffusion of oxygen. And alveolus expands, so that is during inhalation the alveoli will expand. At that time there is high oxygen concentration and low carbon dioxide concentration. So once they are diffusing, that is when the oxygen moves into the capillaries, and from the capillaries the carbon dioxide is coming back to the alveoli, the concentration of oxygen will get decreased in the alveoli and the concentration of carbon dioxide will be increased. Okay, so and when this carbon dioxide is getting higher, the pressure will be created, which will cause recoil of the lungs, and thereby the carbon dioxide will be exhaled through the nose via the bronchus. So the bronchial tree is nothing but the bronchus. Okay, and next step is the perfusion. Okay, so perfusion is the amount of blood that is coming to the through the capillaries and to the lungs for gas exchange. Okay, so this alveoli and the pulmonary capillaries, they are exchanging the gases. So the right ventricle has to synergically function with the lungs in order to send the deoxygenated blood to the lungs, that is to the alveoli, so that they can get oxygenated. And this process of external respiration and the blood coming to the alveoli and getting oxygenated, that is called as perfusion. And next is diffusion. Diffusion is nothing but the exchange of gases. As I already said, from the higher concentrated area, the oxygen is more in the alveoli, which will go to the capillaries, and the more of carbon dioxide in the capillaries will come to the alveoli. So this process of exchange of gases is called as diffusion. Okay, and next is transport of oxygen. So that is, once the alveolar oxygen is going into the blood, 1.5% of oxygen will get dissolved in plasma. The other 98.5% of oxygen will combine with the hemoglobin. Okay, they get bound in the hemoglobin that are present in the red blood cells which is in the blood, and the heme portion of the hemoglobin consists of 4 atoms of iron, and this iron only will bind with the molecule of oxygen. So this oxygen and hemoglobin, when they bind together, they form oxyhemoglobin, and this oxyhemoglobin reaction is reversible. Okay, that means once they go into the cells, the oxygen has to diffuse into the cells, so they have to reverse their reaction. Okay, so as the blood flow into the tissue capillaries, the iron oxygen reaction reverses, so that means they go back to their normal oxygen and hemoglobin stage. Okay, reverse the hemoglobin, and the hemoglobin will release the oxygen to diffuse into the interstitial fluid, and from the fluid they go to the cells. This process is called transport of oxygen. Okay, next is the carbon dioxide transfer. So this carbon dioxide transfer also takes place in 3 components. One is dissolved in plasma. So these carbon dioxide, they are easily dissolved in the blood. So they, about 5% of carbon dioxide will be in the dissolved form, and they can easily get soluble in plasma than oxygen. Okay, so greater amount is getting dissolved in plasma, and the 10% of carbon dioxide is transported by mixing with hemoglobin, that is getting bound in hemoglobin. And so when the carbon dioxide mix with hemoglobin, they called as carbonimohemoglobin, and this carbonimohemoglobin is that gives bluish color to the blood. Okay, so the blood will change to red to bluish color when there is carbonimohemoglobin, and this is the reason why veins are bluish in color. Okay, then is the bicarbonate ion transfer. So here majority 85% of the carbon dioxide will travel in the bloodstream as bicarbonate ions. So here the carbon dioxide will combine with water to form carbonic acid, and later in the cells they will dissociate as hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ions. Okay, and this bicarbonate ion, they are easily carried in the through the fluid. They go into the tissues and mainly to the duodenum and intestines. They go in the form of fluids. And next is regulation of respiration. So respiration control is by neuronal control, that is nerves, and the chemoreceptors and proprioceptors. So mainly neural mechanism is by the medulla, which is responsible for breathing, and pons, which are responsible for controlling the rate of breathing. Other than this, there is also voluntary control of regulation takes place with the cerebral cortex. And the chemoreceptors, so again there are receptors in the medulla, aortic and carotid bodies of the blood vessels. So whenever there is some change in the blood pH, okay, pH is the negative logarithm of hydrogen ion concentration. So this is when they are less, so normally 7.35 to 7.45, when they are less it is called as acidic, when they are more it is called as alkali. So whenever there is changes in the pH, immediately the medulla oblongata of the brain will get the will signal the change through the respiratory function, and thereby so many reactions occurs, so which will be discussed later. That is the chemoreceptor regulation. And next is the proprioceptor. Proprioceptor is the physiological mechanisms that occur in order to cause the lung. So that is whenever we take in oxygen, the lung will inflate, and there is a nervous control which will not allow the lung to get inflated above than normal. Okay, so there is some, that is too much inflation of the lung will be prevented by this proprioceptor. So if there is too much inflation, then there won't be elastic recoil and there can be rupture of the lungs. So to prevent that, this proprioceptor function is essential. So we'll see the one by one. First is neuronal control. So here the involuntary control is there and voluntary control. So involuntary control is by the diaphragm and intercostal muscles. Okay, so there are nerves that are supplied to the diaphragm and in intercostal muscles. They are stimulated stimulated, and these nerve supply are coming from the pons and medulla, and whenever they are stimulated, they send impulses to the respiratory muscles via the phrenic and the intercostal nerves. Okay, so these two nerves, they bring the impulses from the pons and medulla, and they are supplied to the diaphragmatic and intercostal muscles, which helps in contraction and relaxation of the lungs. So here the ventral root is responsible for the expiration and the dorsal root is responsible for the inspiration. Okay, so ventral root is nothing but those nerves come from the brain to the periphery, okay, to the lungs, and the dorsal root is the nerves that are taking the impulse from the periphery to the center. Okay, so through the spinal cord, these nerves will go to the brain, so they are called the ventral and the dorsal root, and the pontine area, that is the pons, will control the respiratory rate and pattern of breathing. So this is involuntary control, and next is the voluntary control. So this is nothing but, so in involuntarily, it is unconsciously the diaphragmatic muscles will start the muscles or respiratory muscles will start the function, that is called involuntary control, and voluntary control is voluntarily consciously done by the cortex of the cerebrum. Okay, so that is which receives input from the limbic system and the hypothalamus, and the signals are sent to the spinal cord from the motor cortex, and then they are passed on to the respiratory muscles. Okay, so from the motor cerebral cortex, the impulses are carried to the respiratory muscles, and thereby they do the voluntary function of inspiration and expiration, that is called as voluntary control. So these two control are there in the neural control. Next is the chemoreceptor control of respiration. So here there are peripheral and central chemoreceptors. So peripheral chemoreceptors are sensitive whenever there is problems in the partial pressure of oxygen, and central chemoreceptors are sensitive in partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Okay, so that is whenever there is decreased partial pressure of oxygen in the blood, that is the blood is oxygenated blood that is coming from the heart in circulation. So these low levels will be detected, and the impulses will travel via glossopharyngeal and vagus nerve to the medulla oblongata and pons in the brainstem, so which will stimulate the respiratory muscles to start the breathing, and thereby they will restore the partial pressure of oxygen. So when they restore, here the respiratory rate and the tidal volume. So tidal volume is the amount of air inspired during one inhalation is called as the tidal volume. Normal is 500 ml of oxygen will be inspired in one respiration. So here the tidal volume will be increased when the peripheral chemoreceptors are active. So mainly the blood flow will be directed towards the kidneys and brain, because these are the organs which are sensitive to hypoxia. So because these organs cannot survive hypoxia for a long time, blood flow will be directed towards this area, and cardiac output also will be increased in order to maintain the blood flow and also increase the oxygen supply to the tissues. Okay, cardiac output is the amount of blood coming through the aorta is called as the, in 1 minute is called as the cardiac output. Next is a central chemoreceptor. So these are located in the medulla oblongata, and they are mainly sensitive for changes in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So any increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide, they will cause increase in the ventilation. That means exhalation of carbon dioxide will be increased, and thereby they will restore the carbon dioxide level to normal. And next is proprioceptor regulation. So here again there are two reflex. One is inflation and the deflation reflex. Okay, that is the respiratory muscles and the lung pulmonary structures will stretch. That is the stretch receptors will stretch only to a maximum volume. Okay, so once they reach the maximum volume, the medulla and the pons in the brain, through the vagus nerve, they will get the signal, and the pneumotaxic center of the pons will send signal to the inspiratory area, so that that is in the dorsal medulla, which will stop the which will not allow the respiratory muscles to expand more than normal. Okay, so this is called as the inflation reflex. Okay, so that the accessory muscles will not will not get inflated more, so they will stop the process that is called as the inspiration reflex. And the deflation reflex is once the inspiration stops, the expiration will begin and the lung will deflate. Okay, so as the lung deflates, again the stretch receptors will be deactivated and compression receptors called the proprioceptors will get activated, so that the inhibitory signals will stop and inhalation will begin again, and this is called as the deflation reflex. Okay, that is inflation and deflation will take automatically by the lungs, and this inflation and deflation will also go only to the maximum volume. Okay, so if they are inspired more, that is inspiration is occurring longer, then it can rupture the lungs. So so this also is by the neuronal mechanism, that is the nerves are nerves, that is the stretch receptors, they will function and prevent the more inflation and deflation, that is called as proprioceptor regulation. And next is the mechanics of breathing. Okay, so breathing mechanism is by inspiration and expiration. So inspiration is an active contraction of the muscles such as diaphragm, whereas expiration tends to be passive. Okay, active means, so when there is negative pressure created within the lungs, actively the muscles will pull the oxygen inside, that is called as that is active contraction. And passive is once the lung is expanded, there will be elastic recoil of the lungs due to pressure, that is called as passive. That is where the muscles will start exhaling, that is called the passive expiration. So the process of inspiration, so it is the first phase in the ventilation. Here the air will enter the lungs, so the diaphragm will flatten, that means it will move down, and there will be increased space in the superior and inferior. Okay, that is upper and lower part of the thoracic cavity, there is excess, the space will be created. And the external intercostal muscles, okay, these are the muscles that are present within the ribs of the thoracic cage, so they also will expand and they will elevate the ribs and the sternum, so the anterior to posterior, okay, that is the front and back dimensions of the thoracic cavity also will increase. Okay, so this action of the inspiratory muscles will increase the volume in the thoracic cavity. So as already said, the Boyle's law, whenever the volume is increased, there will be a decreased pressure created within the lungs, which will cause a negative pressure, so that from the environment, so that the air from the environment will be pushed inside the lungs through a pressure gradient, that is called as the process of inspiration. Okay, then is the process of expiration. So it is the phase of ventilation where the air is exhaled from the lungs. Okay, so that is, it is going out of the lung. So here the diaphragm will relax and go back into its resting position. Now the superior inferior, that is the upper and lower part of the thoracic cavity dimension will reduce, and same way external intercostal muscles will relax and the ribs and the sternum will get depressed, which will cause the reduction in the anterior posterior dimension of the thoracic cavity. Okay, that is the front and the back portion of the thoracic cavity place will be reduced, and this relaxation of inspiratory muscles will cause decrease in the volume in thoracic cavity, so that there will be elastic recoil of the previously expanded lung tissue. Okay, so that is during inspiration the lungs are expanded, they will automatically recoil. So this is again by the Boyle's law, which says that when there is decrease in lung volume, which will result in increased pressure within the lungs, this increased pressure will force the air out of the lungs to the external environment through the pressure gradient, is called as the process of expiration. And next, coming to the characteristics of respiration. So there are 5 characteristics: rate, rhythm, depth, quality and sound, which will be detailedly learning one by one. And first is the respiratory rate. So this is 1 minute how many breaths are taken, that we are counting, that is called as the respiratory rate. And the normal respiratory rate will be differing from children, and it is varies according to the age. And when the respiratory rate is high, it is called as rapid breathing, and when the respiratory rate is low than the normal range, we call it as slow breathing. So again here there is the age group where in newborns the respiratory range will be 44 and sometimes it may extend to 60 breaths per minute, and in infants it is 20 to 40 breaths per minute, and in preschool children it is 20 to 30 breaths per minute, and in older children it is 16 to 25 breaths per minute, and in adults it is 12 to 16 breaths per minute. Okay, so these are the normal range. And next characteristic is depth of respiration. Okay, so this is how much air is inhaled inside and also it is exhaled outside is called as the depth of respiration. So the amount of air inhaled and exhaled in one cycle is called as the tidal volume, which I already said should be 500 ml of air. So the more the chest cavity expands, the greater will be the depth of ventilation. So the chest wall has to fully expand. There should be full relaxation and full expansion and full relaxation which occurs during inhalation and exhalation is a good indicator that there is adequate depth for breathing, so that there will be adequate tidal volume. Again, in depth of respiration we have to see whether it is normal, shallow or deep. So in normal breathing, so that is the person should not breathe in full capacity. Okay, that means the lungs will be fully expanding, should not be there. So that should be a normal, without any distress, without any change in skin color, then the patient is taking adequate breathing. Okay, that is already I said it is measured in tidal volume, that is airflow should be 500 ml in each breath, that is called as normal. And shallow breathing means you can see the chest and the abdomen is rising and falling very slightly. Okay, that means the breath will not be effective, it will be in a rapid rate and you can see shortness of breath. And deep respiration is the chest cavity will expand in full capacity with more of effort the patient will give in order to breathe, and the breathing pattern will be rapid, and deep breathing will cause hyperventilation. Okay, and next characteristics is respiratory rhythm. So this is the entire breathing, that is inhalation and exhalation cycle. So normally if the patient is having a normal regular rhythm, there should be a inhalation, next a pause. Okay, the patient has to stop for some time, then there will be exhalation, again a pause, then inhalation. So this cycle will be repeated. So where in between there should be a pause in between inhalation and exhalation is the regular rhythm. Okay, so when there is a change from this normal pattern, okay, so patient is not giving any pause, he's breathing very faster or breathing very slowly without any pause, then we call it as a irregular rhythm. And next is the quality. So normal quality of breathing will be automatic, regular and even. Okay, so that means each breath will have a regular frequency and with regular effort and does not require any conscious effort. Okay, that means involuntary action will be there for the lungs to expand and relax. So here there won't be noise or discomfort, that means there won't be any abnormal respiratory sound, no discomfort or pain, then we call the patient's breathing quality is normal. And in case of abnormal breathing, the patient will have pain, or it occurs in case of illness where the patient will be gasping for breath, which we call it as air hunger. Okay, there will be increased effort for breathing, with a conscious effort the person will breathe, that is abnormal breathing quality. Okay, and finally the characteristics are respiratory sounds. So normal respiratory sound, there are three sounds, that is loud, high pitched bronchial breath sounds will be heard over trachea, and medium pitched bronchovesicular sounds will be heard on bronchi area and between the scapula and below the clavicle. So when you auscultate with the stethoscope, you can, in these areas you can hear a medium pitched sound, that is bronchovesicular sound, and low pitched vesicular sound will be heard in the peripheral lung fields. Okay, that is in the diaphragm, above the diaphragm, in the apex of the lungs, where the alveoli is there you will hear the low pitched vesicular sound. So this is the normal respiratory sounds. So the abnormal respiratory sounds are wheezing. So here you can hear whistling sound during exhalation. Okay, when patient is exhaling, there will be whistling sound. And stridor, this occurs due to some obstruction in the airway. Here there will be high pitched whistling sound, especially during inhalation. We also call it as grunt, where the patient will have a stop in the inhalation, that is the high pitched whistling sound. This is mainly caused due to airway obstruction. And rales, so here you can see small clicking, bubbling or rattling sound in the lungs during inhalation. Okay, this is mainly in case of any fluid accumulation, you can hear the rales sound. And rhonchi, so it is also abnormal sound. Here like a snoring like sound will be there. This is also because of blocked airflow. That is when the air is flowing through the large airways. If there is an obstruction, then the air has to squeeze through the obstruction and go. That time there will be a snoring like sound heard. That is called as the rhonchi. So these are the abnormal respiratory sounds. So this is about today's class. I hope you have understood my class. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, and also click the notification button for regular update of my videos. Thank you.